chop up babies or cut the heads off of cats.
As far as Anton LaVey is concerned, I'm sure there's a lot of people that follow him and consider him a serious Satanist, and I have interviewed a couple that do. But from what I can read on the occult books and the other Satanists that I have interviewed, they don't consider Anton LaVey that serious. He's a showman.
Judy and I heard about each other. I don't know if you heard about me or I heard about you.
Right.
But it was a natural relationship because we're both private investigators. I'm in Los Angeles, she's down in Long Beach. And as any good investigator would do, just to learn or hear about satanic cults isn't enough. You've got to jump into it and delve into it and develop sources and informants, which we both have done. I've been told by a woman who was born into the movement and was in it for more than 15 years, that there are several hundred satanic groups across the nation that practice human and animal sacrifice. In all walks of life, doctors, lawyers, airline pilots, educators. I have been told of one superintendent of schools who's a practicing Satanist.
It wasn't until about 4 years ago that I what we call breakthrough. I began to have these memories. Then I had to start putting my life together. One of the earliest memories that I had was a brick wall, and they took these babies and they nailed them by their heads in a circle on that wall, and then they had 3 crosses. And in the middle cross, they had a man hung up there. Now that man had tried to save my twin sister and me, and unfortunately, they captured him. And so they hung him up there, and then they hung my twin sister on one cross, and they hung me on the other side on another cross. But they had this pile of bloody baby parts in front of them. And they stood there with my older sister, and they threw those parts at us as we hung up on the wall. They follow a religious calendar, similar to the Christians have a Christian calendar. And at one of their big times is at the crucifixion of Christ. And so what they were doing is they were playing out the crucifixion of Christ.
The younger the soul, the more innocent the soul, because they've had less chance to sin. So the more innocent the soul that they sacrifice, the more power in the sacrifice. And that was told to me, again, by a practicing Satanist. When they kill the child and they've brought them to total fear, if they eat the flesh, then they, of course, acquire the child's awareness, his uniqueness, his IQ, his courage, his whatever.
Well, the area I'm from, on the North Shore of Chicago, in the probably middle 1800s, I believe that that's about the time when this must have begun in that village, that the Satanists infiltrated. My grandfather, who was a very prominent Methodist minister in the Chicago area, I believe that he not only was the Methodist minister, but he was also into the Satanic beliefs and practices. My father was corporate executive for Chicago Stockyards for 32 years, so he had easy access to a lot of things there at the stockyards that they could use in these kind of rituals. And we had 2 little grocery stores there with walk-in cold butcher units. And that's where they would hang these bodies, that they would use in the rituals. And they would hang me up there and tell me that this is what would happen to me if I opened my mouth and talked.
They also are very heavy into mind control, and they pass this on from generation to generation. In other words, they'll have a whole family that'll practice Satan worshiping. They take those kids and they raise them. It's like the mind control in Vietnam, but the communists have used in the past.
And then, of course, we've got all our adult survivors, and there's so many that it's frightening, actually. But they're coming forward, and they're saying, somebody stop it.
I was alone in the room at first. Then there were people that came in. They looked like priests. They had black suits on like a priest. They didn't have a white collar. They had black masks on. Then they began to chant. They brought the baby that was in the bucket. They pulled a baby up out of that bucket. And the baby was kind of whimpering like a baby, a newborn baby. They literally took the knife and went from the chest bone down and cut it wide open. They then took, everyone in that room took the guts of the baby, literally reached in, hand in, and took with the baby still moving, screaming, and apparently the baby then went limp, but they took the living guts of this baby out and ate it. My grandfather was doing the praying, and he began a prayer out of the book. As he held the baby over me, he said, "O Holy One of the world, we offer you this libation for strength and power in your name, Satan. We offer this child and girl as a living sacrifice for your power and glory, and we dedicate this Virgin of God and make her holy by fornication, molestation, incest, cannibalism, and torture." The baby was dead, the girl was dead, and I was just there, and these people were all around me, so I just assumed that I was going to get the same thing.
Bear in mind that they also incinerate. They have the cremators, and they destroy the bodies. There's no evidence.
Part of the proof that that happens, wasn't it somebody down in Texas, that wasn't it Henry Lee Lucas, who actually said that he had gone to schools where they taught him how to kidnap a child?
Who trained you? The hands of death. We were trained in detail what to do, what to look for. It's just like going out and going to school. It's tight. We learn through books, through actual participation in killings.
Lucas claimed that he was trained to kill as a Satanist. Unless the FBI, law enforcement in general, looks at this seriously and does something about it, it's going to continue to expand. And we're going to have the pyramid effect.
So often when we have tried to get protection from law enforcement, they don't believe us. I'm very careful. I'm very careful where I talk about this, and you know, I screen the people I'm around. They can do anything they want to. That means if they cared to kill you, they wouldn't think anything of it.
Somebody left 13 dead red roses and 13 dead chrysanthemums on my front lawn in Westwood, California.
I received 6 dead lizards and 6 dead birds in a pile on my porch.
I did not wait to see if it was a threat. I left town immediately.
But I did know who had left them there. So I just picked them up and drove up to where they lived and put them back on their porch.
In addition, I developed a considerable amount of information on 18 murders that were committed by the Satanic cult people and members of their group. Some were drug-related, some weren't, some were sacrifices. And I have this information in sealed envelopes, in 12 sealed envelopes, and if anything happens to me, these envelopes with the names, dates, places will be mailed to some key people